Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with Bob Rose. How you doing tonight, Bob?
Well, I'm hating the bird species right now, like a lot of Saints fans. But other than that, I'm doing pretty well on a Tuesday night. How about you?
Good. We've had a couple of days to digest it. Saints, this is kind of a repetitive scenario. The Saints have lost many games this way under Drew Brees and Sean Payton. 19 times for Sean and Drew, 19 times for Drew, where he's taken the lead in the last 2 minutes of a game, only to watch the defense give it away. Vernon Davis in 2011, Minneapolis Miracle, George Kittle in 2018, Kyle Rudolph in the playoffs game. It's happened before. But for some people, they've never seen this before, apparently. They act like it was all Derek Carr, and Derek Carr just didn't play well enough to win, and he can't lead a team back. And I mean, that last drive, and that was a beautiful pass to Chris Olave, who the only thing that tops that is Chris Olave's footwork, dragging that toe. He got really 3 feet in on that one. It just, I get tired of the Derek Carr bashing, and I know the anti-Derek Carr people have been lingering out there. These first 2 weeks have pissed them off because
they're like this.
Yeah. What's that mean? That guy behind the tree, it's exactly it. I mean, they've been aggravated that the Saints fans are happy that the Saints actually looked not only competent, but looked like a playoff caliber team. And it's just gotten to the point where, in the 70s, that was like the theme song for the Saints too, Pick Up the Pieces by Average White Band. So, but I mean, they just, it's like, I can't be miserable like that. I really can't be. I mean, I wanted them to win when Dicker was playing, in charge. Whatever happens. You're never going to get the coach you want. You're never going to get the quarterback you want. So you've got to enjoy what you've got, or you find another team to follow that makes you happier. I watched a lot of bad football this weekend. I watched a lot of football coaches make boneheaded decisions week after week after week. Let's go into this a little bit. Okay, so Sirianni is a moron. He passes up 2 field goals. And I had an Eagles fan that I'm friends with, and he was texting me, after the game, and he's like, "You guys saved our coach from a week of justified bashing." He says, "Our coach is a moron. He lucked out because you guys all ran into each other and you gave up that big play and gave up the touchdown." But he said, basically, we had no business winning that game. We were terrible. We should have lost it. And we should have lost because our coach is an idiot. So let's go into these things, because I think what's happening is analytics are taking over common sense. Yeah. This game was 3-0 for 3 quarters, going to the 4th quarter. The Eagles scored all 15 points in the 4th quarter. The Saints scored their touchdown in the 4th quarter. But they made bad decisions too. So let's look at the analytics side for Nick Sirianni and the Eagles. Clearly, I would think you're going to say they should have kicked both field goals and punted probably in that 60-yarder.
They definitely punted on the 60-yarder and certainly taken the points on at least one of the field goals. I said this on one of my radio shows on Monday morning. And Alan, I've been a coach for a long time, and I'm aggressive by nature, and I do like aggression. but I hate analytics. And there is a time where you set aside aggression for common sense. You have to recognize the tone of the game.
Yes.
And that both defenses are playing extremely well. And like I said, if it's me, maybe I take one of those fourth down chances. If I do, it's probably the first one. But by the second one, I have recognized, okay, this is what kind of day it's going to be. I need to put points on the board. And and like I said, that's when common sense takes over. Not the analytics bullshit. And most teams have strictly an analytics guy somewhere on the staff. He might not have a title, like that, but he's the analytics guy that you turn to. Usually up in the booth. The odds say go for this. Or do that in this situation, and you see the analytic graphics put up on TV all the time. Go for two in this situation, don't go for two in that situation. But the analytics guy on every NFL team, hell, probably every professional sports franchise, has a chart right in front of them, a flow chart, and do this in this situation and do that in that situation. But again, if I'm the coach, this is my team. And you have to coach with your gut and your head. So like I said, I definitely don't try that 60-yard field goal. Especially when I basically already said to the field goal kicker, you know what? I don't have much confidence in you because I've already gone for fourth downs on very makeable field goal distances. And then, like I said, on the 2 fourth downs where they were well within field goal range, I might go for the first one, but I sure as hell kick it on the second one just to get points up there on the scoreboard.
You have 14 seconds left in the half. Even though you're getting the ball in the second half, take the points, double up your score.
Exactly.
It's 3-3 at halftime, instead of 3-0. That was a huge momentum swing. And I think they carried over into the second half because didn't they turn the ball over in the second on their first possession? I think they did. I think that was the third turnover.
I want to say, yeah. I have my own turnover on downs. So yeah.
Okay,
that was another fourth down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So they went for it again on fourth down, and I know Sirianni kind of made his bones basically being the guy who goes for it on fourth down. But yeah, I'm the same way. I'm playing the analytics. I'm not playing the analytics. I'm sorry. I'm playing my gut. I'm looking at the way this game is going. I'm going to be pretty conservative. I'm taking the field goals because my defense is holding a high-powered offense to 3 points the whole game. I can stack field goals. The Steelers are winning this way.
Right.
I can stack field goals, and it's a blackjack game. But, I just feel like you just keep stacking the field goals, and you're going to win. And I felt that Dennis Allen made that same kind of mistake in the fourth quarter. I get the Vince Lombardi thing. You got to make a yard. If you can't make a yard, you don't deserve to win. And I get the whole after his first season when he was criticized over and over and over again about being too conservative and kicking field goals instead of going for the touchdowns. Again, the game, the way the game was unfolding,
you struggled to run the ball all day long. Yeah. Why do you think it's going to change on one play?
Right. Especially without Taysom Hill.
And Erik McCoy and Cesar Ruiz.
But I think, Taysom Hill would have made a difference, or at least 2 or 3 of those possessions on third and short. You probably do go for it on fourth down with Taysom Hill back there because he probably gets it. And if he doesn't get it and you run that play anyway with him, people can at least understand, okay, it's Taysom. You're running a Taysom play. It should work. It just didn't. But I just felt like, and I felt the same way about the 2-point conversion. I'm like, don't chase points. I know you're playing the math in your head, but it's 10 minutes left in the game. You don't know what's going to happen. Take the extra point, kick the field goal, and guess what? You're going to be up in the game at the very end. You win this game by a point. You win 16-15. So, that was some of the frustrating thing. There were other missed opportunities too. I mean, the two passes to Rashid Shaheed, great play by the defense, but Shaheed's got to learn how to get his arm free or to block out the guy so he can get the ball and fight. That's that contested catch thing. Get that contested catch. He scores on either of those plays, the game's over.
Yep.
That leads my next point here. A.T. Perry didn't play. We've seen Tipton play. We've seen Cedric Wilson out there. Is it time to activate A.T. Perry?
Absolutely. I know at least we were told he missed the opener with a hand injury. I don't know whether that's still been the case the last 2 weeks. I know this past week we were told he missed practice because of illness, and then wasn't given a helmet on Sunday. AT hasn't, and I know he frustrated the coaches a little bit, with his inconsistencies, during training camp. But he can make plays. He did it for you last year in a putrid offense. And he is. At this point, he is your contested catch guy. Cedric Wilson, at least through 3 games, not even close to what you and I thought he was going to be. Mason Tipton, love the kid, rooting for him, but undrafted rookie, not the answer. Jawan Johnson is doing his best impression, early Halloween costume of the Invisible Man. They don't have a reliable third pass catcher right now. And that's going to come back to bite you against good teams and good defenses like Philadelphia that figure out a way, okay, if we could take one of their receivers out like they did to Shaheed, and minimize the damage from the other one, we're going to dare them to beat us with a Jawan, a Cedric, and Alvin coming out of the backfield, which they only did that 3 times. And the Saints proved that they aren't able to win that way. So, I absolutely think it's time to activate A.T. Perry because, like I said, at the onset, at least he's proved. I understand he is very inconsistent at this stage, but he's also proven he can make plays for you. These other guys are not.
Yeah, I read that Jawan Johnson's still in a pitch count for whatever reason. I guess he's still feeling effects of that injury or he's just not in shape. I'm not sure what it is. But this offense desperately needs a third guy just to come out and make the difference. I mean, the Eagles lost, didn't have A.J. Brown to begin with. They lost Devonta Smith. It was a brutal hit, but totally legal. And I do not
clean,
feel, I do not feel that was a cheap shot because the official hadn't blown the whistle. But once they lost both those guys, they still had a semblance of a passing attack because they had a Goddard. They had the third guy. We don't have a player of Goddard's caliber on our roster. We're looking at Henry Charles catching the game-winning touchdown against the Falcons in 1977. We don't have anybody like him either. We just don't have a reliable pass catcher, tight end, or third receiver in this offense. And I think that more than the play calling really impacted the way the Saints were able to do anything Sunday. Erik McCoy is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. The reports are saying he's going to have groin surgery. I don't think the offensive line is going to be that bad with a week's preparation. I think when you have a fire drill like they had once McCoy was out, you're kind of scrambling to see who is going to play center and who's going to be your left guard. How would you grade Patrick as a center?
How would I grade his performance on Sunday? F-. Lower if I could. He was absolutely awful. But Patrick has, and I know everybody is thinking Ruiz, and yeah, that's a possibility, but I'm thinking it's going to be Patrick. Patrick was a center to begin his career with Green Bay, a backup, but he was still a center. And he started several games in Chicago at center, including most of last season at the position. So I think, and this was kind of what you just alluded to. Now that you know Erik McCoy is going to be out, as long as the coaches don't make the poor decision of working out different guys at center. We'll plug in Saldivari this practice. We'll plug in Patrick this practice. We'll plug in Ruiz this practice. If they make their decision immediately, we want Lucas Patrick to be our center. Then simultaneously, you also make the decision, we want Udo or Saldivari at left guard. In other words, you have your lineup that you want for Atlanta, and they get to practice together all week. And that's something that, you called it a Chinese fire drill, on Sunday with the offensive line. And that's what it was. I mean, it's not like anybody except Erik McCoy, is making those line calls, at center during the course of the week. It's just Erik. So if you're looking for a positive, I grant you it's a small one. If you're looking for a positive, I think that's it. That as long as they make the decision who is going to be where early in the week, then you can at least set up a little bit of continuity. Now grading Patrick as a player, there was a reason why he was signed for relatively cheap on the free agent market. Because he's middle of the road offensive interior blocker, whether it's guard or center. So, and I said this in my article, it doesn't matter whether you put Patrick or whether you put Ruiz at center. It's a significant downgrade from what you had in Erik McCoy. And sure, as a result, it's also a significant downgrade, at right guard or left guard, depending on who you move, bringing in up a backup. So, now you're talking about, you're downgrading two positions. It's going to be very interesting to see how Clint Kubiak combats this. One of the accolades that we were giving Kubes over the last couple of weeks was the fact that, and you stated it several times, the fact that Kubiak's system doesn't rely on a lineman dominating in one-on-one blocking. It's a zone blocking concept. So, again, continuity matters here. But if you can get everybody on the same page and your weakest link is not an absolute liability, you can still have a relatively coherent offensive line performance.
Yeah, and I didn't even ask you about the two guards, Udo and Ruiz. I thought Ruiz regressed terribly.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And a lot of it I thought was because Jalen Carter decided to show up in the NFL for the first time.
Right.
It was just 6-8 weeks, and that's what they're reporting. He's going to have surgery. So it's going to be longer, probably close to 8 weeks. But yeah, I thought Ruiz looked terrible. I thought Udo was just practically useless out there. So the whole middle of the line was beat up. Mm-hmm. And because of that, you couldn't get anything going on the ground rushing. I mean, they kept complaining, you keep running Alvin Kamara, keep running Alvin Kamara. Jamal Williams did touch the ball a few times. Jamal Williams lost yardage, I think, almost every time he touched the ball. Kamara at least was able to shake off a block. And then you're trying to run plays to get the pass rush off of you. So you try running bootlegs, you try running screens, and, it was terrible. I saw Carr throw a lot of passes in the dirt because he just couldn't get anything going. It was terrible. It really was. And to me, this team gets off the bus running the ball. That's what they do. They're going to be a running team. They know the limitations at receiver. But if you can run the ball effectively, you can't double up receivers or take receivers away, and that's their philosophy. And through 2 weeks, it didn't hurt us. Last week, it hurt us. So where do you go from here? You talk about the offensive line, figuring out who you're going to play and make them work all week together to make that work. What do you do about your pass catchers? What do you do about the running attack?
This is one of the mistakes that I thought that Kubiak made. Two major mistakes that Kubiak made this week. You talked about the bootlegs and the rollouts. We didn't see any of that from Derek Carr until midway through the third quarter, and I couldn't figure that part out. And then secondly, you were already without Taysom Hill. So that limits your variation a little bit, your deviation in your formations a little bit. But what we didn't see is we didn't get any jet sweeps from Olave or Shaheed. And with the way that interior was being obliterated, I guess I can't blame them. But we also didn't see Rashid or Olave line up in the backfield. And we have seen that for at least a few snaps. So if opposing coverage is doing a decent job of doubling one guy and having a high-low bracket on the other, which is essentially what happened, then you have to figure out other ways to free up guys like Olave and Shaheed. One way is to use Alvin Kamara more as a receiver, so I would certainly do that. And the other way is run those guys in motion. We saw some motion out of the Saints on Sunday, but it was all the tight ends or all Kamara. It wasn't the receivers at all. So run those guys in motion. Bring them out of the backfield. It's going to be impossible to double a guy coming out of the backfield. Kubiak has got to find different ways to free up those guys. If those are the only weapons he has, then you have to find different ways to use them. So that way the opposition can't bracket them or double them down as easily.
And Calvin's asking this, what was with the constant dumb pass plays on 3rd and short?
You had no confidence in your offensive line. You had to keep it simple. It's frustrating as all hell, and it reminded you of a Pete Carmichael game. But that was because the tackles didn't play well either. But the interior of your line was literally getting obliterated on every single play.
And I think no Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
This was a game for Saints fans to stick in the face of the nerds who say, why do you pay Taysom Hill all this money? He's just a gimmick guy. No, he's not a gimmick guy. He is right now. He's an I-beam in this offense because he does so many things. Because he makes defensive coordinators think about where's he going to line up? What's he going to do? Is he going to run the ball? Is he going to block? What's he going to do on this play? And because of that, you have opportunities to do things. Plus, Taysom Hill is, I'm sorry, your toughest inside runner.
Oh, yeah.
He moves the pile. He drops shoulders and runs over people. So even if your offensive line is getting obliterated, Taysom Hill gives you the opportunity to, with his own pure strength, fight and get those first downs and move the chains. And it's funny because here we are talking about the offense. Except for the yardage, the statistics were pretty close. I think the Saints were 6 of 14 on 3rd down, and the Eagles were 6 of 15 on 3rd down. They ran a lot more plays because they were going up and down in the 20s.
Yeah.
It was a bend, don't break defense, but they turned the ball over in the red zone. They turned the ball over twice. They had a block punt. A lot of things that they did. The Saints were able to make plays. Taysom Hill right there, the Atlanta Falcons killer. There's a lot of things the Saints defense did to keep them in the game and to shut the door on the Eagles. So let's look at the other side of the coin. Saints defense against this Atlanta offense, Saints defense against the Eagles. What did you like? What didn't you like that the Saints defense did?
The one thing I hated is the 3rd and 16 play at the end of the game that everybody talks about. And listen, I know what Tyrann Mathieu said, hey, we're a man-to-man coverage team. That's just what we do. I get that, and I respect that. But we have all seen tons of Saints games where if the opponent was in a 3rd and long or a 4th and long, again, common sense. You dropped off. You kept defenders back to make the quarterback throw in front of you, and then you make the damn tackle. You certainly don't man up their tight end who has been killing you throughout the game. Don't man up on him on a crosser route where you're just inviting a pick play. We talked about the Rams offense a couple weeks ago and why Dennis Allen teams have always struggled against that. That play is the reason why. Teams obviously watch, NFL teams obviously watch film throughout the week, and they identify in certain situations, if you see this coverage when you're playing against the Saints, you run that play. And that's what happened. The execution was piss poor, but I thought the defensive design was equally piss poor. I'll pause before I go on.
The weird thing about that play, if you watch Will Harris, he's the one that was the guy who seemed to screw up.
Yeah.
He read it and he attacked the play.
Yeah.
And in the process, he goes and takes out, I don't know who the crossing linebacker was, or maybe the crossing defensive back. I think it may have been Alontae Taylor, but he's the one that caused the 3 people to run into each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because instead of staying back on his third of the field, he attacked, and with the intention of bringing the tight end down as soon as he caught the ball.
Yeah.
But he seemed to sacrifice the defense to make a play. That's what it like to me. And I think that's where it went all wrong. But I agree with you. I think on a 3rd and 16 play, they're probably going to go for it on 4th down.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, you play a short zone. You have guys up so they don't get behind you, but you also have 2 guys deep with the whole goal of rally and tackle. No yards after the catch, rally and tackle. Get him right there, bring him down, and live for another down.
Mm-hmm.
Because at worst, it's 4th and 8, and he's going to go for it. Now you're protecting the sticks.
Right.
That's a much, much more defensible play than going to whatever they did. You know? So, yeah, I agree. And, I've seen it too many times. I've seen multiple defensive coordinators do this. It's not just Dennis Allen.
No.
I've seen Greg Williams do it. I've seen Rob Ryan do it. Greg Williams, cover 0. Go and cover 0, against Vernon Davis. It still pisses me off.
Yeah.
So the players change. Marcus Williams, the players change, but the results seem to be the same all the time.
Yep. Now, the way the teams generally stack up, what did the Saints have trouble with this last week? A dynamic running back in Saquon Barkley and an athletic tight end in Dallas Goedert. What did the Saints face this week? A dynamic running back in Bijan Robinson and an athletic tight end in Kyle Pitts. Granted, Atlanta still has yet to figure out how to use him, but that's what he is. Now, you look at the yardage that Barkley got, and they were just absolutely gashing the Saints up the middle in the second half. And initially, I was really ticked off about that. I still am, but I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, the defensive coordinator Dennis Allen failed to adjust. They failed to stack the middle, and the guys that were in the middle were just getting whipped. Well, after I rewatched the game, Sadly, I hate rewatching losses, but it's my job. After I rewatched the game and had some time to think about it, I'm like, you know what? By late third, early fourth quarter, these guys were gassed.
Yeah.
Because they were just on the field, for forever. At one point, the time of possession, I think in the second quarter was like 11 minutes to 1. It was like that a lot of the way through the third quarter as well.
The Saints ran 9 plays in the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean right. And that defense was just gassed. And as far as Stack in the middle, again, I was really ticked off at the time because that's where the Saints were getting beat. But then I realized you're playing Jalen Hurts and you're playing Saquon Barkley, 2 guys who make a living at beating your defense off the edge. And they really, Jalen got a couple of plays in the first half, but they were really cutting down Barkley on the edge in the first half. Barkley got all his yards on draws, traps, and cutbacks up the middle. Mm-hmm. That's because the Saints were kind of overplaying the edge. And given what Jalen Hurts has done to you in the past, I guess I don't blame you. I mean, there were reasons why the Eagles were getting the yardage that they were in the second half. And Bijan is capable of doing that too. But Kirk Cousins ain't beating anybody off the edge anytime soon. That and the Falcons are beat up on the offensive line as well. They definitely have one. They could have 2 of their starters out for Sunday. So I like this Saints matchup a lot better against Atlanta. As long as Kirk Cousins is a notorious Saints killer, one of the most overrated quarterbacks in NFL history, but he turns into a Hall of Famer whenever he goes up against the New Orleans Saints. Even having said that, you mentioned this before. I think it was before we went on the air. Cousins is as a stationary a target as you get in the pocket. The Saints are going to pin their ears back and come after him. So again, as long as you can contain Bijan from big plays like Barkley got against you, the Falcons, I'm not worried about Drake London. He's the type of physical receiver that Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo typically take completely out of the game. If you can eliminate the big plays from Bijan Robinson, I don't think Kirk Cousins has it in him anymore to single-handedly win a football game.
I was watching his footwork against the Chiefs on Sunday night, and he is not stepping into his throws. He is throwing off his back foot. So the balls float. There's not a lot of zip to his throws. So this is a game. I've been waiting for the Chase Young 3-sack performance game. He gets close. He's like my dating life. He gets so close to getting it to happen, and it doesn't happen. So it's kind of frustrating actually, because you want to see him close out the game. You want to see him get those big sacks because he's capable of it. And I'm already reading the negative stuff. I'm reading the same old crap. Chase Young is showing you who he really was. He's the same guy he was in Washington, same guy he was in. He's not. He really isn't, because he is demanding a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And it's helping Carl Granderson get his sacks. It is allowing Alontae Taylor to get his sacks because they're so concerned about the Saints edge rushers and the Saints defensive front, because Brian Brzee has gotten sacks, that when they open up the offensive line, the safety can come in clean. Or the cornerback come in clean. He's getting the hits. He's getting those sacks. And it makes a lot of things work. So sacks are the sexy stat, but it's worth watching to see how much attention Chase Young gets. The fans may not like it, but he does have the respect of the league. They know what kind of player he really is.
Oh yeah, and I agree with you. I think he's playing really well. Listen, as soon as Chase was signed, you and I were talking about different ways that he could affect this defense without filling up the stat sheet, and that's exactly what's happening. He's drawing the attention, and Granderson is playing really, really good football. Brzee is playing really, really good football, and Dennis Allen, Joe Woods are recognizing the attention that that Chase is drawing, and they're bringing Alontae Taylor in on those blitzes week after week, and he's getting home. The only thing that concerns me about Chase is he's had the opportunity to make a couple plays himself, and he's been unable to finish. Yeah, that we're talking about a millisecond here. But oftentimes actually that millisecond is the difference between giving up a third down conversion and or getting the ball back to your offense. So Chase has got to finish those plays. But to the people that say that he hasn't done anything, you either don't know what you're talking about, or you have yet to watch an actual game of Saints football this season, because he's affecting this defense in a lot of positive ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to see the whole sack the quarterback while tackling the tackle at the same time. I want to see one of those kind of plays, because I think that's what he's missing out of his repertoire. Saints linebackers. Nick Underhill has teased that the injury report is going to be about as long as a CVS receipt. You were saying off the air that you suspect line nicks and bruises and soreness that's probably going to hold people out of practice the first couple of days.
Yeah.
Demario Davis was one of the names that is being floated as somebody who may have gotten nicked up over there on Sunday. I don't think he was even on that play on 3rd and 16. I don't think he was on the field for that play.
No.
Would Demario Davis missing the game be a big loss?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you miss a Demario Davis from your lineup, it's a big loss. But we just got done talking about Bijan Robinson and how dangerous a back he is. How good a tight end Kyle Pitts can be. Demario Davis is the guy that can at least limit the impact of those types of players. And I don't think the Saints linebackers as a whole, Davis, Warner, and Willie Gay, I don't think they're playing particularly well. Even through those first two games, they weren't playing poorly; they just weren't standing out. Davis had some nice moments, but Gay, Warner, they've been practically invisible. You need those guys to step up for sure. But Davis is one of the names I'm going to be watching on the injury report all week, because he is one of the ones that I think his issue goes a little bit further beyond nicks and bruises and soreness. He has a legitimate soft tissue injury that you're hoping will respond to treatment by Friday or Saturday. Because if you're without Davis, that's a big advantage for the Falcons, with the way that they like to use Bijan Robinson, get him off tackle, get him outside, throw passes to him out of the backfield, because Davis is the guy that's going to track Bijan Robinson down in the open field.
Yeah, because I thought Pete Warner played well in the first half, but he was also, I don't want to say guessing, right? Because that's not good. That's not accurate either. I think he read plays and was able to be aggressive and go after Barkley early in the game. But when they started the cutback runs, that's when Warner was overrunning and over pursuing plays. So, without Davis out there, I think they can get hurt a lot easier with Warner and Gay. Gay has been in and out of the lineup a lot because the Saints still play. Excuse me. They still play the two linebackers, 4-man front with either a big nickel defense, or they run a 5-man front with 4 in the back end. Rarely do they play 3 linebackers, and it's just the way they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to see Demario out there, and I hope he does respond well to treatment, because I think he does take away a lot of what Bijan Robinson likes to do. And to me, if you take away Bijan Robinson and you can shut down London, you've pretty much crippled that Atlanta offense.
Yep.
Because Kyle Pitts is a box of chocolate. You know, you don't know what you're going to get out of him because he could run wide open and he's going to drop the pass. He'll make a difficult catch, but he's going to drop the easy pass.
Right.
You know, and the other Atlanta Falcons receivers really don't scare me at all.
No, I mean, listen, I like Darnell Mooney. You know, and if you're looking for a third wide receiver, if the Saints had Darnell Mooney on their roster, I'd be jumping for joy. But Darnell Mooney is not the type of guy that scares me as a primary weapon. And, you know, really outside of, you know, like you said, you know, you ran down the list, you know, Robinson, Pitts, and London. Those are the order of the Saints, of the Falcons' top three weapons that you have to worry about. If you contain even two of them, you know, then I don't think Mooney is a good enough player, you know, to make to be a game changer if they have to rely on him.
And I especially think if the Falcons don't have their left tackle and don't have their center, that they're going to go max protect a lot.
Yeah.
If they go max protect, that means Kyle Pitts now has to stay in and block. So if the Falcons do this and they try running the ball like they saw Barkley did, we got Robinson. We've talked about him. What about the other two guys? Algier and because everybody wears whatever the hell number they want to wear now. I can't think of the guy's name. It's like two of the same things. Tay or something like that. Ray.
Are you talking Ray McCloud?
Ray McCloud.
Okay.
Is he a receiver or a running back?
Yes. He's more of a receiver. But I mean, he's a guy. They'll use him the way that they use Cordero Patterson.
Okay.
You know, sometimes, and he's a less physical version of Patterson. You know, he can. He's with Pittsburgh now. Actually, he's with Arthur Smith in Pittsburgh.
Okay, good. Because I hate that son of a bitch.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, you know, we'll see Ray McCloud lined up in the backfield sometimes, but more often than not, he'll be in motion or coming out of the slot. You know, he's similar to Mooney. He's a shifty guy in the open field, you know, that can make plays if you forget about him. But if you pay the proper attention to him, he's not likely to make any you know, game-changing, momentum-turning plays.
No, I just worry about little quick inside guys getting, you know, the bullshit yardage they should never get. That's the kind of stuff I look for. That's the stuff that aggravates me when I watch them play is, you know, the little shifty guys who, you know, seem to squirt out of tackles. And I know that's what people who play the Saints say the same thing about Alvin Kamara, said the same thing about Darren Sproles and Reggie Bush. But yeah, those little shifty guys that the Saints seem to have a hard time handling because they can't wrap up and bring them down. That's something that bothers me and it drives me nuts when I watch them play because I feel like the guy's just not a very good running back and here he is gashing us.
Right.
You know, whereas the power back they're on top of the whole time. Do you see this as a game that the Saints can get turnovers?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And New Orleans has done that this year pretty consistently. I know Cousins doesn't turn the ball over a lot, but historically, if you rough him up early in the game, you got to get to him early. If you rough him up early in the game, you know, then he gets happy feet and that ball starts sailing. And, you know, you've already talked about his mechanics this year being even worse than the ball sailing, you know, even in clean pockets. Now, if you get to him, and this is another reason why I think Atlanta is going to max protect. You know, if not with Pitts, you know, then certainly with a fullback or a backup tight end. But they are going to try to keep an extra blocker in there because they need Kirk Cousins to have 3 seconds minimum to throw the football. You know, and if he doesn't, he is going to throw a few to your team. You know, and or give a few to your team. And I know he doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, but he fumbles a lot. So you get to him, he's going to put the ball on the ground. So yeah, I can easily see this being a game where the Saints get 2 or 3 turnovers.
Did I tell you this last week? I think I did. One of the games the Falcons lost. I think it was the first week of the season. The guy was talking about putting Michael Penis in instead of Michael Penix.
Yes.
And all the great jokes, just the tip. Do you think this is a game that if Cousins gets beat up, that he makes a switch and puts Penix in?
I doubt it. Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, Kirk is an established veteran, and even though I stand by what I said about him being one of the most overrated, forget quarterback, one of the most overrated players of all time, you still paid a lot of money to get him in. He's a veteran. In theory, you did draft the penis, to take over, but. Anybody that looked at Michael Penix, and I loved Penix coming into the draft.
Yeah.
But anybody that looked at him also realizes he needs good coaching at the NFL level to clean up that elongated release. And he basically needs a year to sit. So unless Kirk Cousins gets hurt, I don't think you see Michael Penix at all this year, especially early in the year. I mean, the Falcons are 1-2, and a loss would drop them to 1-3, and a painful divisional loss, no less. But they've been in all 3 games so far. They shouldn't have won the one that they did, but you can make a strong case that they shouldn't have lost the 2 that they did either. So no, if Kirk struggles, I don't think they make the switch. I don't think they want to make the switch until they absolutely have to.
And the reason why I'm asking this is because there is a fan out there, the Falcons, who is making the argument that they are a 3-0 team being held back by Kirk Cousins, and mainly because Kirk struggled badly in week 1. And while he played a great game in week 2, he really didn't do a whole heck of a lot in week 3 when they needed him to.
Mm-hmm.
And again, bad coaching decisions. The Falcons didn't kick the field goal when they were down in the end zone. And I don't care if you make the argument it's pass interference or not. But you went for it on 4th down. You didn't get it. If you would have kicked the field goal, it had been 20-22. You're within a score to win now. You have to take the risk that your defense is going to be able to contain Mahomes. I know it's a big gamble, but you're going to have to bet on your defense to be able to contain Mahomes in order for you to get the ball back. And then you just need a field goal to win, and you have one of the better kickers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bad decision that backfired because you did get the ball back, but you had to score a touchdown now because you blew an opportunity for points. And again, you're playing the analytics game, and the analytics say go for it, but the Atlanta analytics cost you that game. This is also another game when we play former Saints. Much was made of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's comments. To me, and I'm going to get your opinion on this too, but to me, he was going to say that same shit no matter what.
Yep.
If the Saints would have beat him, he'd have said, they're still overrated. We showed they were overrated because they didn't score 40 points on us. And, they still got Derek Carr as their quarterback, which he knows what that means. And I think he would have finished it with, we're going to play these guys again. And that's the game that's going to count, meaning the playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
So he said the same thing. He had that speech prepared. He's been preparing that speech since he saw the Saints on the schedule.
Yep.
Zach Bond was on the field. I was glad not to see a bunch of pro Zach Bond stuff like I saw in week 1 because Zach Bond got taken for a ride a lot.
Yep.
In that game. We saw the same guy we saw against the Saints when he played with the Saints, I should say. There was a fantastic catch, Olave, I think it was. No, it was
Kamara.
made off of his helmet. What is your opinion, first off, of the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson comments, but secondly, playing David Onyemata and playing Caden Ellis?
First of all, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a classless piece of trash with with more personalities, more personalities than our two podcasts combined. And he is the type of guy that you do love to have on your team when he's happy. When he's not happy, he's a divisive presence, as we've also seen. And if you're looking for, and I always use this line, as a teaser when we get close to the playoffs, when you predict playoff games or a Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl participants, you have to figure out the Goodell storyline, the storyline that Goodell wants. There you go, John Butler, my weekly Goodell bash. This does say, if you have doubts if the Saints are going to make the playoffs, this loss might actually quiet your doubts a little bit. Because now that six personality Gardner-Johnson, spouted off at the mouth, this makes for a hell of a playoff storyline for an early round. Other than that, Gardner-Johnson as an athlete, he's a nice player, but don't give me this crap about he's a defensive star. He's a complimentary piece at best, that likes to talk himself up way more than what he actually is. Facing Onyemata with your interior line issues, that concerns me. Because David, when he's on, David Onyemata is a very disruptive presence, and it's bad enough that Grady Jarrett, and we know what a monster he can be. Grady's playing really good football so far this season. I'm a little bit worried about that twosome of Onyemata and Grady Jarrett inside, because if they create disruption, that makes Caden Ellis get a free run to the ball carrier.
Yeah.
And, Caden Ellis is a better version of Zach Bond. He's never a guy, ever a guy that you want in coverage in the open field. But if you want to give me a Caden Ellis and say you can use him as a downhill attacking defender, that's a pretty good option. And if you have guys like Onyemata and Jarrett getting pushed into the backfield, you obviously have to respond to them first, because that's your shortest path to the quarterback. So you do that, and you're forced to use three blockers and a chip on those guys. Then all of a sudden, Caden Ellis's eyes just light up because he sees a clean path right into the backfield. Playing these guys this week schematically worries me. I hated to lose both of them. I understood why it happened. They sure as hell weren't going to overpay for Ellis. The Onyemata thing still baffles me why the Saints lost him, because you would have had him. You were paying him dead money anyway. He was going to be on your books, and he ended up signing with Atlanta for the same amount of dead cap space that he was costing your team. So why you couldn't re-sign him is beyond me. But I bitched and moaned about that enough at the time. I think I'm not, and I know you feel the same way, Alan. Outside of the two safeties, Simmons and especially Bates, which I respect, there's not a whole lot of talent on this Atlanta defense. AJ Terrell, he's a good cornerback. Don't give me that he's among the elite.
No.
He's a good cornerback. Ellis is a good linebacker if used correctly, and he has been in Atlanta. Onyemata and Jarrett up front worry me this weekend, though.
And without McCoy being there, it does concern me a lot, because I think you can run on Atlanta's defense.
Yes.
I think that's the key, and I think that's part of the reason why they didn't re-sign David Onyemata, is because they felt like his run defense had slid. He's played better in Atlanta, Ironically, he is playing better now that they have a different defensive coordinator
I
than
know.
his the guy he followed to Atlanta, um, which also goes to show you why fans shouldn't be picking coaches, because people were losing their minds over losing that guy to Atlanta. They were losing their minds over the guy who I don't think is even coaching the NFL right now.
Oh, worse. Ryan Nielsen is the defensive coordinator in Jacksonville, and we know
Yeah,
how piss poor they are playing right now.
right. And it's Jacksonville, another coach that I was so glad we did not
Yeah.
interview. I mean, we interviewed
Yeah.
him via Zoom, and then people like that shows you the fix was in. They weren't going to give a Super Bowl winning coach a chance. I'm like, you know what? We've had 2 Super Bowl winning coaches on this team come to this team, Mike Ditka and Hank Stram.
Thanks, man.
I love Hank Stram. I think he's a soundbite machine, but he only won 7 games in 2 years with the Saints. And he did worse the year Archie was there than the year he had Archie out. Granted, Archie only played 10 games in that 77 season, but still, he did even worse that second year. So there comes a time when you have to realize, and they're not the only coaches who've done this. I mean, you just go back and look at George Seifert. He was horrible in Carolina. A lot of Super Bowl winning coaches, when they go to another team to try and come back, never bring that team back to the Super Bowl, much less make a winner out of them. So, I had no interest in Doug Peterson. Again, my friend, the Eagles fan, told you, you do not want this man. He cannot manage the clock. He makes boneheaded play calls. There's confusion on the sidelines. You get delay of game penalties. You get all these things. And what are we seeing with Jacksonville right now? You're seeing boneheaded decisions. You're seeing mismanaged clock. You're seeing delay of game penalties, all the things that we saw in Philadelphia. And he's got more talent in Jacksonville, and he can't harness any of it. I mean, I watched about a quarter of that Buffalo game. Buffalo is like watching the Saints versus Dallas again. They just simply had no answer to anything Buffalo was doing. So, and again, it's more the case of coaches making bad decisions.
Yeah.
And just not understanding the analytics versus the flow of the game. You've got to do things based on the flow of the game. Don't chase points. So the Saints offense now against the Atlanta defense, we talked about it. The Saints passing game versus the Atlanta defense. Assuming Carr has time, do you think this is a game that Olave and Shaheed can feast on if they can figure out blocking up the middle?
Well, and like you said, they have to block up the middle. They have to get Onyemata, Jarrett, and Ellis blocked up the middle. Without sacrificing too much on the edge and letting Lorenzo Carter run free. I mentioned AJ Terrell. I expect he's going to be on Olave as much as possible. This is a game where you can't expect to get points easy, a lot of easy shots to Shaheed, because Justin Simmons and especially Jesse Bates. Simmons is a good safety, but I think he's a little overrated. Mm-hmm. Jesse Bates is all that. Next to Antoine Winfield in Tampa Bay, Jesse Bates to me is the second best safety in the National Football League. So you don't want to try those guys over the top too often, because they will make you pay. So I think you have to start using Shaheed underneath more. Screen passes, quick hitches, things like that. Things to creep those guys up, and then maybe you take your deep shot with Olave. So I do think that the Saints passing game can get going. It can get right this week, but it's going to be in a different way than what we saw the first 2 weeks. I don't think Shaheed's your down the field guy. I think it could be Olave. I think Juwan Johnson. I understand what you were saying on the pitch. That he seems like he's on a pitch count. But I think he got 28 snaps last week and 0 targets.
Yeah.
So just because you're on a pitch count doesn't mean you completely forget that the guy's in the game. And Juwan Johnson has had some nice moments against Atlanta because Atlanta's linebackers can't cover him. And that hasn't changed. Troy Anderson, Caden Ellis, they're not the guys to be covering Juwan Johnson down the field. They're not the guys to be covering Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. And I thought that Kamara would be used more as a receiver against Philadelphia because it was a similar situation. You mentioned the play on Zach Bond. One of Kamara's other receptions came with Zach Bond, well in his tail, in his tailpipe fumes. Yet Kamara was only targeted 3 times as a receiver.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to what we said at the beginning of the show. If Juwan Johnson isn't coming through for you, you have to find a way to get him more involved. But if you don't have another guy stepping up, then find different ways to use Olave, Shaheed, Kamara, especially in that passing game. We have seen Olave make some plays down the field. Against the Falcons in his short career. So again, AJ Terrell, decent cornerback, but if you match him up on Olave one-on-one, Chris is going to get his plays. Shaheed, like I said, if I wouldn't ignore Shaheed as a deep receiver. It depends what the coverage gives me and who's over the top. But if they play that too high, trying to read Carr's eyes, when Derek tries to make that deep throw, then combat that by swinging the ball out to Kamara, getting the ball to Shaheed on a quick hitch. Manufacture your passing game in different ways.
I agree, and that's what Calvin's really basically asking. How come we're not running the jet sweeps? How come we're not handing off on the motion guy? I think the interior of the line, we're going to have to hold up that interior of the line. I think Taysom Hill has to play this game to kind of open up this offense. And I say that because Taysom Hill's the guy who's going to be able to run over basically Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata. He's the one who's got to move the pile. He's the one that's going to have to block and get things open for Kamara and some of these, wide runs because he has the speed to run with it, and he does enough of a cut down block. So I think those things, and you can also run the jet sweep with both Taysom Hill and Rashid Shaheed, so they can go into motion and they quick handoff and they take off. So there's going to be a lot of manufacturing of plays. You got to manufacture some running plays to get that defense to open up because they're going to come out blitzing. They're going to come out going after Carr. Yeah. Because that's how they think they can disrupt the offense. It's going to take a lot of creativity by Kubiak this week. This has got to be Kubiak's bounce back game. You've got a week. Now these are the issues that you've got. Now, a team was able to expose some of that. You're going to have to show you can counter. And your counters are going to determine whether or not you're going to have a successful season or this is going to be a one-year wonder for the Saints.
Right.
Special teams. We've already talked about Younghoe Koo being one of the best kickers in the league. Groupie had one kick. It bounced off the upright. That was scary enough. But the punting game actually was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised by how he was able to flip the field and limit returns. And the Saints, of course, made the block. If there's any team that hates seeing the Saints block a punt, it's the Atlanta Falcons. And the Saints have managed to block the punt many, many times against the Falcons. Special teams, matching up the Saints and the Falcons. Who has the edge on this?
Field goal kicking, it's the Falcons, and there's no disrespect to Groupie. I just think the Falcons kicker is that darn good. But the Saints are really feeling it, in their coverage units and their kick block units. And again, you have Rashid Shaheed, who is the best returner in the NFL in my book, and undoubtedly in the even in the national idiotic circles, he's top three. So outside of field goal kicking, I think the Saints check off the advantage in every other box. Punting still scares me. I agree with you. Hayball had a heck of a game. And I never give out a game ball article, unless the Saints win. But the punter and Granderson would have been the only two to get it this past week.
Yeah.
We just got done talking about, trying to figure out ways to manufacture yards, manufacture field position, with creativity. You can also do that with special teams. Even if you don't get, and there were two other, Eagles punts. I think it was two other Eagles punts where the Saints came close to getting it. Like I was on the edge of my seat. Like I think they got this one. So they are getting back there. They are feeling it. Groupie on those kickoffs, he is still daring the other team to return the kicks. And I think that's by design, by Darren Reese's design.
It is.
Because they just have that much confidence in their coverage units. And eventually, I think that they're gonna, because they're laying the lumber too. I think they're gonna cause a returner or two to put one on the ground a couple times this season. That's another reason why they're doing that. So in a game like this, special teams can make a difference for you.
Yeah, and I completely agree because I think the Saints have a better special teams coach than the Falcons do with Rizzi. I just feel like there's going to be opportunities to block punts. There's going to be opportunities to. What did you just do?
That's not just foul.
You broke it. So there's going to be opportunities to do things on special teams to flip fields and to take advantage of short fields for your offense. That's going to be something that is going to determine, I think, in a close game, going to determine whether or not the Saints can win.
Yeah.
I'm putting a big advantage to the Saints on special teams because of that. Youngwink, who, if the game is close, I don't want him kicking the game winner, because I feel like that's, look what it is, the stiff arm. I just don't feel comfortable with him being in that position because I think he will hit the game winner. You've got to put this team away early. You've got to make them one-dimensional. You've got to make Kirk Cousins eat that ball a lot. And you've got to win the third down conversion. Calvin said all these damn turnovers and turnover on downs and nothing to show for it. The Eagles defense isn't elite, but they played elite on Sunday. The Falcons defense isn't elite, and I don't think they can play elite on Sunday. I know you throw the records out and just, it's division rivals. They're up for the game. The Saints are up for this game. I just feel like the Saints can make plays on defense that the Falcons simply can't.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The Eagles, I get, Calvin, I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. And even though we are sitting here saying that the Saints should have won that game, you could easily imagine that, if it weren't for the missed opportunities that the Eagles had, their own miscues, they could have won that game by 3 scores just as easily. Philadelphia has a lot more talent than people give them credit for. Something that you and I both acknowledged last week. It's just unfortunately for New Orleans, the Philadelphia defense finally played up to that talent level. Atlanta doesn't have that same kind of talent, not on offense or defense. I've said it for months now. I don't understand the national media's obsession with the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, is it just because they signed a new quarterback? Maybe, because they added nothing this offseason, quarterback and coach included, that makes me think, oh my God, the Falcons are going to take a major step up. I still truly believe that the Saints are a vastly superior team from top to bottom, offense, defense, special teams, and yes, coaching.
You know, the thing about the Falcons, I have a feeling they just want something different. It's been Tampa. It was us for 4 years. It was Tampa for 4 years. They're just ready for someone different. And clearly, Carolina is a disaster,
Yeah.
despite winning against. How do you figure the Raiders beat the Ravens? Okay, and then the Raiders lay an egg against the Panthers, and Dallas gets manhandled by the Ravens, where the Ravens were a team that just found ways to lose, and they almost found a way to lose to Dallas if
Yeah, they
Dallas
did.
was a little more competent, because they allowed so many points to come back. So and that's, to me, that's a warning sign for the Ravens. If this was a Ravens podcast, I'd be very mad.
Yeah.
About that win, saying you had your foot on the team's neck and you got off of it and you almost let them come back and get you. It's just, and I agree with you, Calvin. It is an Andy Dalton effect. And it is it's like getting fired, a new coach getting in his place. When you fire a coach and you bring the new one in, they play this great game for a game or two. They win something unexpected, but then reality kicks in. People go, "Oh yeah, Andy Dalton, he's a statue back there. Let's just go after him."
You mentioned reality, and that's and this is something that you're so fond of saying, and it's so accurate. We're coming into week 4 now. It's right about now that you're starting to find out who the real contenders are. And we're not just saying that because of the Saints. It's the crazy things like like what you just mentioned with the Panthers, the Raiders, and the Ravens, Cowboys. It's time. These teams are about to really show themselves. The de facto preseason is over. These teams are going to really start to show us who they really are.
I agree, and that's why I think the Saints win this game, because I agree with you. They are the better team. They are the better team. They have the better roster. Injuries kind of, depending on who plays, injuries kind of wash each other out. So I feel like the Saints should win this game. Now, do they win this game? It depends on how they play. But they're capable of winning this game. Last thing before I ask you about the Bayou Blitz, they asked Dennis Allen about Cam Jordan and saying that Cam Jordan had very limited number of sacks. Are you surprised by this at all?
No,
not sacks, snaps. That's the word I was looking for.
No, not at all. Frankly, this kind of thing kind of thing should have happened 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. Not necessarily cutting them back to 20 snaps a game. But that's one of the reasons why they were drafting Marcus Davenport in the first round, Peyton Turner in the first round, Isaiah Foskey in the second round. They were. Everybody, and part of it was trying to find a complement to Cam. Another reason was loading up that edge rush position because Cam was getting older. Not that they were trying to push him out the door. The idea was they wanted to kind of limit his snaps, make him a situational player, to an extent, because that would make him more effective. That would elongate his career. Yeah. And you and I mentioned this when they signed Chase Young, that they didn't sign it to, limit Carl Granderson. They made the signing to limit Cam Jordan. So far it's actually paid off pretty well. Now, we haven't seen it pay off for Cam statistically yet. But Chase Young, as we mentioned, playing really well. Carl Granderson, as we mentioned, playing really well. So what's going to happen now? Cam is being used in specific situations. That's going to keep him fresher late in games. It's going to keep him fresher down the stretch of the season. Hopefully it pays dividends. And the damage, it might be too little, too late. Because Cam's played for 12, 13 seasons, 35 years old.
13 seasons.
every single year, playing every single game, 85 to 90% of the defensive snaps. That's a ton of pounding. So that's why they're limiting his snaps. It isn't because they're trying to push him out the door, folks. They're hoping that he's going to be a more effective player when they need him to be a more effective player.
Yeah, December. You're playing into December and January. It's a 17-game season now. So absolutely. I think it's a great idea to limit his snaps early. And you want Cam to be peaking and to be in great shape come December and January.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to make a playoff push, that's when you need your rotation. That's when you need to be the strongest. So I totally agree with it. I have no problem with it. Bayou Blitz tomorrow night. What you got going on?
I have a feeling, because the first official injury report of the week drops, I have a feeling the majority of the show is going to be talking about the injuries. Now, we already know for the Saints, Erik McCoy is out. We already know for the Falcons, Drew Dahlman, their starting center, is out. It's looking like Caleb McGarry, their right tackle, is going to be out too. So like you said earlier in this show, who else is going to be out? We're watching Vernon Davis very closely. Cesar Ruiz very closely. Taysom Hill very closely. We learned, as we learned going into Sunday's game, it wasn't just a chest bruise where it was a bone bruise. Taysom has bruised lungs. Well, what's the extent of that? That's not that's not something we've found out yet. Is it bruised lungs because of cracked ribs? If so, Taysom ain't playing this week. Is it just a contusion kind of thing? If that's the case, he has a shot. Now, I will, even though I expect that to be the topic of conversation, tomorrow night with Brendan and I, I'll tell you guys ahead of time. I would expect, just like Nick Underhill's told us today, expect basically a lengthy injury list. We do believe that a lot of those are just going to be the normal nicks, bumps, and bruises. But it's worth noting who is going to be on that injury list, A, and B, the nature of the injuries. So just because the player doesn't practice on Wednesday, I wouldn't be concerned then. It's the ones that aren't back to at least limited duty on Thursday that I would start to raise an eyebrow for this Sunday's matchup.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a prediction. It's gonna be people like Tyrann Mathieu, and Demario Davis, who we talked about already, Alvin Kamara, probably Taysom Hill. I didn't see an injury or anything like that to Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed, but the offensive line, who got injured on the offensive line. Those are the names to watch.
Yeah.
Because those are guys that you're like, okay, they got to play this Sunday.
Yeah.
If I had to make a prediction, or if you had to make a prediction on Sunday, what kind of score do you see?
24-16 Saints.
Yeah.
I think the Saints have the offensive talent to roll through the Falcons, but the offensive line, it scares me right now. And as long as the Falcons don't get Bijan Robinson going, and as long as the Saints can bang around Kirk Cousins early, I don't think that offense does anything against New Orleans.
Yeah, my prediction is predicated on Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill both playing on Sunday.
Sure.
If that's the case, I can see a 27-21 kind of game, 24-21 kind of game. A lot closer than what fans are going to want to see. A lot of things they'll be mad about, but I think the defense can handle Atlanta's offense. It's a question of our offense being able to move the ball effectively and consistently against Atlanta's defense.
Mm-hmm.
If we can do that, it'll be a much more enjoyable game. But the injuries on this offensive line, and the possible injuries to the running attack, I just don't feel good about it.
Yeah.
This is why Dennis Allen got so pissed off about Kendre Miller missing all training camp and being injured, because people are like, we can't have Kamara touch the ball 28 times a game. I get that. But no, Kendre Miller, that's who they wanted to have touch the ball 25, 28 times in the game. And he's just not doing it. And you remember last year when he did play, how well Miller looked against that Atlanta defense. He was just running over people.
Yep.
Until he comes back, if he comes back, I just don't. I don't feel confident right now. So they should win, but do they win? I don't know. This is also the last Sunday before they do the 3 games in 10 days. Because the next game is a Monday night against the Chiefs, then Sunday at Tampa. No, I'm sorry, Sunday home against Tampa, right?
Yeah, Sunday's at home against Tampa.
Yeah, because then they play Thursday night at home against Denver. 3 games in 10 days. You got a long injury report. That's not a good
right.
combo. So, these things aren't getting any easier. In the meantime, thanks, Bob. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you as always, and we'll see you next time under the dome. Good night, everybody.